Stanley Kubrick is one of the greatest directors to have ever lived. When you look at his They Shoot Pictures profile, you will see his last 11 films are included within the top 1,000 films of all time. Since shooting his first feature-length film in 1952, Kubrick has released 13 feature-length films, which have become some of the best works in multiple genres. Kubrick has been nominated for Best Picture for Barry Lyndon, A Clockwork Orange, and Dr. Strangelove, and also nominated for Best Director for Dr. Strangelove, 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, and Barry Lyndon. But I can say regardless of the accolades, or the diminishment of Kubrick's name, which we'll touch upon a bit later, is that the content of his films would make him what I consider to be a top 15 director of all time. While I have done an in-depth ranking and discussion of Kubrick's films, which includes the channel friend Filmjunkie, and of course I encourage you to watch those videos, especially you Kubrick fans. I think you'll really enjoy those videos. Here, today, I will rank each and every one of Kubrick's feature-length films in a more concise manner as opposed to the more long-form ranking video and the post-video discussion that I did with Filmjunkie. But again, those are great videos, and you should check them out as well. While Kubrick is known for being a perfectionist amongst the film community, his first feature-length film was far from it. Coming in at number 13, we have Fear and Desire. With its 2.5 rating on Letterboxd, it is the lone mar on the otherwise good record of Kubrick's filmography. I've said so much on my online review in that I was probably overly forgiving because Kubrick's name was tied to the project. Though it doesn't have the magical moments that come from the scripts in which Kubrick is a part of, you can see that the subject matter isn't too far from what he comes to make later on in his career. Also, it's not easily noticeable because of the terrible quality of the film used for this picture on Amazon when you watch it through their page, but there are some solid cinematographer, aspects in this film. It does say a lot, however, that Kubrick himself wanted this film wiped from the face of the planet. I gave it a 3.5, though this film is in a bottom tier all by itself from all of Kubrick's other films. Up next is Kubrick's second film, Killer's Kiss, at number 12. I will say it's not a drastic improvement from the first picture, but you can see, especially at this early stage of Kubrick's career, there is improvement. Killer's Kiss does not stick with me story-wise very much, which is another indication towards his projects with his writing credits being better, but I do remember shots from this film. The scenes of boxing and the conflict in the mannequin warehouse are both still locked in my memory. This is, in my opinion, the first film that truly indicates that Kubrick is capable of much more and that he is evolving. I gave Killer Kiss a 3.5 out of 5 and is in its own tier as well. The next film is one of the more controversial films, and I misspoke, this is not in its own tier. It's in a tier with this next film, one of the more controversial films at the times of its release, and that is Lolita at number 11. What is unique about this film is that Kubrick chose to voluntarily leap into the flames of controversy after two critically acclaimed features, which seemingly, in my opinion, would have cemented him as a Hollywood talent, in a film which grossed the most for its year in which it came out. More on those films later. I think even despite my not liking this as much as my top 10, it's very telling to the content Kubrick wanted to create that he took on this source material, which made its release a living hell due to censorship at the time, showing his want to push boundaries and to take on any story that he liked despite the challenges. Though, a little interesting side note, Kubrick had said, had he known the challenges that would have come about due to the censorship, he never would have took this on. So, take that with a grain of salt. One of the first criticisms I saw of this was from someone I just recently did a ranking of all of their films, Quentin Tarantino, which you should watch that video if you haven't. And he called this film, Lolita, fraudulent on Kubrick's behalf. I don't know if I myself would use that as a criticism for this film and why it's ranked so low in my Kubrick rating, but I would call you, the viewer, yeah, I'm talking to you, fraudulent if you kept watching this and weren't subscribed to the channel. I have tons of videos like this, ranking directors like Quentin Tarantino that I just mentioned and analyzing movies that you all love. So please subscribe to the channel and check out those videos. Again, I can't speak for everyone, but there's a good chance the subject material impacted my rating, even if ever so slightly, where this also came in at a 3.5 out of 5, being in the same tier of Killer's Kiss. Though, I do think most people would prefer this film over Killer's Kiss, myself included. Now, coming up at number 10 and entering the tier of great Kubrick films is The Killing. In quick succession from 1952 to 1956, Kubrick was able to show competence, ability, and now finally greatness with this film. This is the beginning of Kubrick's career as many know it. However, unfortunately, many don't know this film, and they really should. The pacing is great. There are characters and dynamics that make this an interesting film from start to finish. It's a great heist movie and rates as a 4 out of 5 on my scale. Next, and most controversially ranked, is number 9, Passive Glory. Passive Glory is, believe it or not, the highest average rated film of Kubrick's on Letterboxd, and quite frankly, I'm not going to argue its proficiency as I find it great and quite frankly deserving of a rewatch. I'm not going to justify why this should be below the other films in front of it on this list either, as this was a film that I really was just getting acquainted to Kubrick with when I watched it. I think the cutting commentary of the power-hungry leaders using soldiers as pawns to protect their egos at any cost is brilliant even today. It's a great cast and has really snappy dialogue. Don't be surprised to see an updated list in the future when I finally do rewatch this film. But as it stands, I give this a 4 out of 5. The next film up is Eyes Wide Shut at number 8. Controversy has always swirled around Kubrick, with this film nearly being exceptional in that regard. Many find Kubrick's death to be the punishment for trying to unveil the world of sex occultists who truly run things behind the scenes. But I've yet to venture down that rabbit hole myself. What I find in this film was a great analogy for infidelity, jealousy, and sex. There's a lot that can be discerned from this film, which I've yet to truly scratch the surface of, but even looking through this story through the lens of infidelity brings in great meaning in my mind and makes it a great film. I think this is a film that will always have an air of mysticism about it just because it's Kubrick's last film, and I think that makes this film all the more special. And I gave it a 4 out of 5. The next film is a pick that will likely ruffle a few feathers of some Kubrick diehards, and that is Spartacus at number 7. Look, through your righteous criticisms at this film and this movie being where it is on the list, I will understand them all. This is really only fitting of Kubrick as the label of a director in that it was very different from everything else he had put out, which is almost to be expected from him. One of the strengths I strongly attribute to Kubrick being his ability to change genre so seamlessly. To do with a big budget and then dominate the box office in the year of 1960 was just a capstone of Kubrick showing the world how complete of a director he is. What I ultimately loved about this was the color of the film, the set, and the costume design. It's my most subjective opinion on this list, well, behind a couple others, but the beauty of this picture and the historical elements made this film hit me in just the right way, as I'm a bit of a sucker of those like historical kind of war battle-y movies. I give this a 4 out of 5. Moving on to number 6, and the next tier of Kubrick's films is Barry Lyndon. What can be said about the beauty of the shots of Spartacus can be said and then some about Barry Lyndon. Each shot isn't just picturesque. They look like they could be pulled straight from the famous paintings in the Louvre. While I can go on and on about the beauty of the picture itself, the wit and intelligence of the script is out of this world. Lyndon serves as an embodiment of the frivolity and lack of substance behind war, calling for a critical eye on war and what is it good for.
War. What is it good for?
Absolutely.
But really, the man who is all sizzle and no substance rises and falls, shows the frivolity of climbing the social ladder, while having his actions show the inanity, that's a new word for y'all, of those fighting as he swaps sides based on need. I think there's a lot to admire about this film, and I rate it a 4.5 out of 5, and have it ranking in my top 130 films I've ever seen currently. Up next is a film my girlfriend abhors, Dr. Strangelove at number 7. Before I begun watching Stanley Kubrick films, I honestly would have never thought his films to have a sense of humor, but this is not only interesting, but brilliantly funny. 3 central elements really come together to create this masterpiece, that being script, performances, and cinematography. When I think cinematography, the last shot obviously comes to mind. It's a brilliant shot. Performances are killed by many, but none more so than Peter Sellers, who plays 3 characters in this freaking movie and kills every last performance. Lastly, the script is not only killer for the storyline perspective, but terrific dialogue. This is another 4.5 out of 5 for me, dog. Breaking in at number 4 is The Shining, a movie my girlfriend loves, funnily enough. This film actually spurred my content creating journey, but is one of the prime examples I'd point to as far as Kubrick's versatility goes. With this film, Kubrick does what only a handful of other greats have been capable of: create a horror masterpiece. What I do find interesting is that the like of Kubrick, Spielberg, and Friedkin, who made the bulk of their films outside of the horror genre, somehow find themselves at the top of the heap in horror, at least for me. Nicholson's performance has me gripped the entirety of the movie, and what I find most brilliant is the interplay between the ideas of hereditary abuse and alcoholism, following a parallel between the paranormal aspects depicted in the film. The film certainly has its controversies, the main ones being the treatment of Shelley Duvall and the moon landing conspiracies implanted in the film. I've read conflicting reports about the treatment regarding Duvall, although the majority of sentiments I've seen online lead towards Kubrick being in the wrong. I will fall back to my defense of Tarantino, who is or has been known to be a bit of an asshole sometimes, and even those who have undoubtedly committed wrongs, by saying I support the art and not the artist, in that regard at least. For anyone with definitive articles pointing one way or another towards these actions, please feel free to post them down below. As for the moon landing stuff, I watched Room 238 many years ago, but it really didn't convince me of much. But anyway, I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. And now we're into the top 3 with A Clockwork Orange. Coincidentally enough, the last all-time director I ranked was Quentin Tarantino, who found Kubrick to be hypocritical in his stance, with A Clockwork Orange being a film against violence despite how much glamorization and celebration for violence there was in the first 20 minutes of the picture. While I'm nowhere near as critical of this film as Tarantino, I do find the violence of the first 20 minutes to be about as amazing in any film as you will ever get. When I tie that to the character work that makes Alex DeLarge one of the most intriguing characters of the 21st century, I think you find something akin to magic. The character arc, the dystopian fixtures, the costumes, the ultra-violence, the language.
How art thou, thou globby bottle of cheap, stinking ship oil?
And critiques of the future this world holds all are splendid and solidify the film at the top of this final tier. I guess more better said, at the bottom of this final tier, which is earmarked for 5 out of 5s. The final, in my mind, controversial take is my number 2, Full Metal Jacket. FMJ has arguably the best first third / half of a film you could ever hope for, and this likely wouldn't even be argued too vehemently from its detractors.
Don't make any fucking effort to get up to the top of the fucking obstacle. If God wanted you up there, he would have miracled your ass up there by now, wouldn't he?
Where, or maybe how, this film breaks into the 5 out of 5 status for me, dog, is that the themes that are established within this first half are beautifully continued into the second half. What is legitimately required knowledge going into this film was the draft, which brought a lot of recruits into the military that wouldn't have been there had there not been a draft. And this really does play a vital role in the story. From this, we can see the narrative Kubrick poses, with the likes of Private Joker and Private Pile needing to be molded into soldiers, which is also the case for people who volunteer, but I guess you're being forced to be molded as opposed to you kind of want to be molded when you're drafted and when you're not, which transpires into a monstrous malformation of what Gunnery Sergeant Hartman intended, in that turning them into ruthless killers has taken hold of Pyle in a way that he could never have imagined. With the likes of Lee Harvey Oswald and Charles Whitman being cited in this film for their marksmanship and Marine backgrounds, Pyle takes the route of infamy after graduating. Private Pyle, an obese, less than intelligent slob, had been whipped into shape enough to graduate, but the irony is that he had been whipped too much into a cold-blooded killer who had flipped his mentality into an unrepentant rage towards the man who had done the whipping, that he unremorsefully killed him right after graduation due to the torture he had gone through in the weeks prior. We see the juxtaposition once we're on the ground for combat. Come time to fight, we see a lack of regimental discipline leading to additional casualties, and our unit coming face to face with an unsuspected enemy. When faced with a child sniper, Joker must find within himself the ability to kill as a means of mercy as opposed to wrath. The men find this hard-fought battle as a win, possibly in their minds, but when walking back afterwards, us, the audience, can look at this objectively and bring into question what we're fighting for and the means used to accomplish it. The more I've watched this film, the more I've come to love it, and I think it to be one of the greatest war films of all time. By the way, check out my war films ranked video if that interests you. Before we get to number 1, I would like to say that Kubrick would be, in my mind, amongst the top 2 filmmakers that I would most want to see an additional film for, right next to Andrei Tarkovsky. His last film, Eyes Wide Shut, showed that he still had greatness in the tank, and I believe there's no telling how great a 14th feature could have been from him. Coming in at number 1, which should be no surprise to you cinephiles out there, is 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think 2001 establishes itself as one of my all-time favorites through the insane cinematography, the on-point futuristic nature of it all, and the story which ponders the evolution of man. I can't think of a story that is definitively more profound than this. I can't think of a movie that has undoubtedly more style than this. This is pure cinematic gold, and quite honestly, a film that would fit right into theaters today, nearly 50 years after its release. I truly find this to be the pinnacle of cinema and has excelled in so many ways that it will be difficult to ever match. A few films are ranked higher for me because of how they personally resonate with me, but objectively, I think this has the greatest argument for being the best film of all time. It's obviously a 5 out of 5. Let me know your thoughts down below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming out next. I appreciate you joining me, and I will catch you on the Flippity Floop.